Hello and welcome to Inside the Americas. I'm Delano D'Souza. Coming up on the show this week. Off-the-cuff remarks after a major address by Joe Biden in Poland sent his administration into correction mode. The Don't Say Gay bill signed into law over in Florida. It bans classroom instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity for young students. And Jada Pinkett Smith calls for healing after her husband Will Smith slaps Chris Rock at the Oscars. But first, last Saturday, while on a visit to Poland, the US President Joe Biden gave what the White House billed as a major address. The 27-minute speech was controversial, but in line with US policy. However, it was the 9-word off-the-cuff remarks at the end, just before the goodbyes, that sent his administration into clarification mode. This after Joe Biden said of his Russian counterpart, "For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power." For more on this story, we can go across to France 24's Ketevan Gorjestani in Washington. Ketevan, Joe Biden addressed these controversial remarks. What did he mean exactly?
Well, first of all, the U.S. president said that he was not walking anything back, but he insisted that he was also not calling for regime change. He simply said that what he meant and what he was expressing was his personal moral outrage at the actions of the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, but that this was in no way articulating a U.S. policy of trying to take Putin down. Those were the words of the U.S. president. And so this explanation was a much clearer, much more candid, and probably more effective explanation than the attempted cleanup right after his speech in Warsaw by the White House team, which somehow explained these comments, saying that the president really meant to say that Putin should not exert power over neighboring countries. The U.S. president also insisting, as he addressed this issue, that there was no reason to think that this would complicate things regarding diplomacy with the Russian. And he really doubled down. He said it over and over again that Putin and people like Putin who commit the same sorts of actions as Putin should not remain in power. And he insisted and said that it was probably more an aspiration, what he said, than anything else.
Now, Ketevan, Joe Biden, that very same day, called Vladimir Putin a butcher while in Poland, and he's dismissed foreign government concerns that those comments could be viewed as an escalation, if you will.
Yes, he actually addressed that issue a little bit unprompted, without a direct question about what these foreign governments had said. He simply said that governments who expressed a concern about whether these comments were a problem, whether they were an escalation, he said no, they were not. He also dismissed the idea that this might start to show a small rift between allies. He said no, NATO is still united. It's never been more united. And most importantly, he dismissed the idea that these comments could somehow have any sort of impact on the actions of Vladimir Putin, that nothing and no one really had that influence over the Russian president. He said that the idea that he's going to do something outrageous because I called him for what he was or what he's doing, I think that is just not rational. Those were the words of the U.S. president.
Ketevan, thank you very much for that update. Ketevan Gorjestani reporting there from Washington. Now, Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis has signed a bill which bans classroom instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity for young students. Opponents refer to the measure as the Don't Say Gay bill. It impacts children between the ages of 5 to 9. Nicholas Rushworth explains.
These high school student protesters are saying gay. They're angry at what is being dubbed Florida's Don't Say Gay bill. The legislation is officially known as the Parental Rights in Education bill, now signed into law by Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis.
We will continue to recognize that in the state of Florida, parents have a fundamental role in the education, healthcare, and well-being of their children. We will not move from that. I don't care what corporate media outlets say. I don't care what Hollywood says. I don't care what big corporations say. Here I stand. I'm not backing down.
The Florida measure bans classroom instruction on sexual orientation or gender identity for young children in public schools. It takes effect on the 1st of July and allows parents to sue school districts they believe to be in violation of the law. Supporters of the legislation say they want to stop classroom discussion on issues they feel are not age appropriate.
Nothing will make me madder than if my child comes home from school and tells me that something happened at school and I was not being made aware of.
All right, Chelsea, you're up.
Opponents include the rights group Equality Florida, which fears for the impact on children.
Tell us about your hero.
I have two heroes. My two moms.
Mrs. Thompson, please report to the front office.
The Don't Say Gay bill is a political calculation. It is abhorrent. Governor DeSantis is trying to build a presidential campaign on the backs of the LGBT community in Florida, and he must be stopped. And it is our very deepest hope that we see this bill overturned in the court system. Legal action is pending.
The White House says the legislation is hateful. Joe Biden tweeted that our LGBTQI+ youth deserve to be affirmed and accepted just as they are.
Log the board and record the vote.
Florida is part of a nationwide trend. More than a dozen other similar bills are moving through state legislatures elsewhere in the United States.
Now, the Oscars were held this past Sunday, but if you didn't know which movie took home Best Picture, you'd be forgiven. That's because the awards were hijacked by a slap. Will Smith slapping comedian Chris Rock after he quipped about Jada Pinkett Smith's shaved head due to her hair loss condition alopecia. Will Smith went on to win the award for Best Actor that evening, but he only apologized to Rock a day later on Instagram, calling his own behavior unacceptable.
In one night, Will Smith won the biggest award of his career after he drove said career off a cliff and turned in one fell slap from national hero to widely reviled. Emmy Award-winning Rosie O'Donnell was among a number of public figures calling it a display of toxic masculinity, both in the use of violence to supposedly defend a woman and in the way Smith was still met with celebration and approval straight afterwards. Some celebrities at the Oscars after-party, though, were sympathetic towards Smith.
Sometimes when you're speaking about somebody's wife, you can't really help that, so that's what I would say.
I haven't been in that situation. I never condone violence or anything of that nature, but I also can understand protecting those you love.
I wish I had a man to protect me like that.
Will Smith became the fifth black man to win Best Actor in what was meant to be a big night for black producers and entertainers and a turning point since the Oscars So White backlash that started in 2015. The slap overshadowed all of that.
It was a humiliating thing for every single Black American watching that show. We didn't do anything, but it's an emotional connection that we have when they win, and that we still have when something that's humiliating as that happens.
This year was produced by Will Packer and co-hosted by Wanda Sykes and Regina Hall. But media expert Kristen Warner pointed out that Will Smith made no apologies to them in his acceptance speech, only to the Academy.
That he apologized to the one entity who is probably the longest sort of purveyor of bad behavior and offensive behavior is telling. And it felt like it was his way of trying to, split the difference and try to sort of return some form of his persona.
Will Smith eventually apologized to Chris Rock on social media, while Jada Pinkett Smith says she's healing. The comedy industry has rallied behind Chris Rock, warning that Smith's actions could spark copycat behavior.
Now, Disney picked up the Oscar for Best Animated Film for Encanto. The movie is a celebration of Colombian culture and highlights the importance of family. Over in Colombia, meanwhile, residents are proud to have been portrayed differently by Hollywood.
All Colombians, and especially people from Salento, are happy with this achievement. This is not only an achievement for Salento, but for the whole country to show such a positive side of Colombia.
Now we'll be leaving you with a look at Encanto itself. That's it for this edition of Inside the Americas. From all of us on the team, thank you very much for watching.
Miracle. Our house, our casita, came to life with magic.
Hola, casita.
Let's go! In time, every member of our family,
Cecilia, up top!
was given their own magical gift.
Our reporters meet two men who are ready for the ultimate sacrifice.
You okay? Yes, man, I'm okay. I'm ready. Good. I'm ready to rumble.
Artyom, a fighter of Cossack origin, and Bohdan Mucha, the great-nephew of the famous Czechoslovakian painter Alphonse Mucha. We follow these two resistance fighters into the hell of war. Reporters on France 24 and France24.com.
France 24. Every art form.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.